Awesome. So once again, welcome everybody. It is again a great big honor to have you guys here. And I was very happy with last week's, as I said, last week's case discussion about, several cases that we discussed and we talked about whitening. Today's a little different. We're gonna talk about composites. And it is a funny case. It's kind of a newer one, so it's 1 year and some months old. It is a case that became already a book chapter, and one good news, it is a book chapter that I wrote in Portuguese, but I just received the news like 10 minutes ago that it is already being translated into English. So I don't know when it's going to be available, but it will be available in English, this book chapter, and for what I heard, it will be probably free for download. So we're going to talk about a case that I did last year, a very challenging one. So we did as a team, as a group of people, a group of professionals, that on the first sight, you see the case and you say, hey, this is not too much of a challenge, but there are some hidden things in this case, and I want to discuss that with you guys. So with that said, let me share my screen and let's take a look of what we're talking about on today's case. So again, it is already a tradition. If there's any question, anything you guys want to share or any question, particular question, feel free to write me on the chat. The chat is always open so we can see what it is going on the chat. So sharing my screen, hopefully you guys can see there. We're on day 3. We're going to talk a little bit about etch and bond, but I'm going to go a little beyond that. I don't want to talk about only etch and bond. We're going to talk about finishing as well, polishing as well. It's a perfect opportunity to talk about that. Next week, as I said before, we're going to talk about composites and Gemini. Don't lose this one because this is a sequence. Today's case and the next cases, then at least the next 2 are very good. And next week, we're going to talk about composites and lasers. More than that, we're going to talk about how morphology might be more forgiving than we think. And then the other, and 2 weeks from now, we're going to talk about tissue management, and I'm going to bring a little bit back also bonding. So I'm going to start talking about bonding today, but I'll bring back this subject again 2 weeks from now, okay? Today's case is this one, and I know it is kind of a anticlimactic thing because you see, I say, hey, Rafael, this is definitely not a challenging case. There's no big deal here. And I understand that because when we see that, there is not too much happening there. It is only maybe, if we think about aesthetics, we might see that, the incisal edge deserves some changing of that. So I completely understand that it is a little underwhelming when we see that and say, hey, it's not a challenge. But what happens with this case is this. The main complaint of the patient is that 10, maybe 15 years ago, she underwent this very big surgery. So it's an orthognathic surgery. And the idea was how to fix. She was a severe class 2 patient. And the thing is, orthognathic surgery, it is always a big one, a traumatic one. And the thing is, occlusion after that, it is very tricky. It's not easy to do. And particularly what happened, and we're talking about, something that the patient brought, it is that the surgeon that did the orthognathic surgery, he attempted to do the occlusal adjustment as well. And he was doing occlusal adjustment blindly. And he went to a point that the posteriors, he was already indenting. He was doing occlusal adjustments, not even in his enamel anymore. He was doing that indenting. So there was all kinds of problems, all kinds of sensitivity, tooth destruction and everything. So she spent the next decade with that problem, with having no occlusion anymore. She didn't have any reference anymore on how to have a good occlusion. And this is when she comes to this guy here. He's an amazing person. He knows a lot about occlusion. He's a very good friend, a good colleague, also my boss in the university down there in Brazil. Now I'm here in Portugal, but in Brazil. And Marcelo, he did everything on the planning. So he's like the maestro of a symphony. He did all the planning, all the steps. He brought back occlusion. And he did that in several steps. So my portion of the treatment was the very end, literally the last months of the treatment that took 2 years on the making. So we're gonna see the end of the treatment, what I did in terms of direct dentistry. Marcelo did everything before, and this is very important to understand. This is a very complex case because there was no occlusion anymore, and that's what he did. Old school, total, not a semi or a fully adjustable articulator. He found out centric relation, maximum intercuspidation. He found out where it should be in relation to the TMJ, the temporomandibular joint. So he found out where it should be. The patient underwent, by the second time she's doing orthodontic treatment. Why is this important? Because when we do orthodontic treatment, and also, I don't know if you noticed, she's not 18 years anymore, she's 50 plus years old. So there's already some bone loss. There was orthodontic surgery and 2 orthodontic treatments. So bone crest is not exactly where we want it to be. So there's less bone holding teeth than it was when she was 20 years ago. Why is that important? Because Marcelo did all the planning, he did everything. And I like that because you don't need to rely exclusively on digital dentistry, but you can also do that. So it is kind of an association of old school with, let's say, new school or more modern technology. And this is the thing, the planning with DSD, so the static and the functional. A 3D printed model was made as well. And what I like it is that you can always refine that. And this is when I start getting into the treatment, when there is already not only the 3D printed model or of where it ideally the teeth should be, not only that, but there's also, if you can see, there's the refinement in wax. So we can see that there's also the refinement. So in terms of function, this is where it should be. Definitely it is not where it is, where it should be. We can transfer, and that's what it is. It was made, it was transferred into mouth on a bisacrylic composite, a bisacrylic provisional restoration. And now what do we have? We have something that it is working, something that the TMJ is loving it. So there's, again, we have centric relation, we have maximal intercuspidation, we have protrusive movements, lateral movements, everything, it is in balance. So it is working. And this is what it is important. That's when I come into play. This is 2 years after. I come into play, as I said, everything is working. All the contact points are working. This is awesome. And this is kind of the problem. The problem is from premolar to the rear, so the posteriors, there's a lot of destruction already. So there's, preparations, crowns, implants, endodontic treatment. But that's not the case between canines and canines, upper and lower. So we're talking about 12 innocent teeth that has nothing to do with the rest of the treatment. So they don't have even the slightest hint of a restoration. They are 100% sound tooth. And this was the idea. That's why Marcelo asked me to join the group of professionals treating the patient. If there was something that I could do in order to change those restorations, this provisional restoration, without grinding, without prepping the tooth, or in other words, to be 100% non-invasive in those 12, let's say, canine to canine, 6 upper, 6 lower anteriors that they are sound. This is his idea, and this is the challenge. How can I do that? How can I change a tooth that it is working, but definitely it is not good looking because it is too tall. It is too, I know it is working, but it's not that good looking because it is too tall. And also, this is another problem. It is too tall. How can I be sure it will be there after 3 months, after a year? Because how the occlusal forces will lay down onto them. So this is the challenge, and this is why it is so important to talk about bonding today. Also, I want to talk about finishing, how important it is to have a good finishing, a good polishing in order to get it right. So let's take a quick look of this. I have everything on my hand already. I only have to copy what it is done before in the provisional and pass that onto the tooth, onto the teeth, following that, let's say, more or less the same anatomy that I have. What I did here, when we remove the provisional, sometimes this provisional, since there's no gaps in between, it's common to see, you know, some degree of inflammation on the gingival tissue. So I use the viscostat to control that bleeding, to have a very good operatory field. And that's what I did. After some people asked me what I'm using here, this white stuff you guys are seeing, this is Teflon tape, a regular tubing Teflon tape. I love using Teflon tape to isolate the neighboring tooth. So what I did, it is that I did the etching and I did the washing, and the washing, it should be a very firm, very strong air and water. So it's water and air at the same time, both of them at the same time. You throughout should wash everything, dry as much as you can, because this is enamel. And remember, 2 weeks from now, I want you to remember that image here, 2 weeks from now, because I'm gonna bring back a little bit the subject of bonding 2 weeks from now. But in this case, it's 100% enamel. So what I need to do is to dry everything, every drop of water that it is there, and then applying the bonding adhesive. So the adhesive, the bonding system, and here I used PEEK. PEEK is from Ultradent. It is very strong. The reason I'm using PEEK in this case is that it's not that I need something that it is strong. I chose the strongest bonding adhesive available today, and this is why we're gonna see why I need the strongest one. And I need to be sure that there's nothing stronger than this one, okay? Because if it breaks, is where science got into. There's nothing stronger than that. So this is how it should look like. It should look like it is moist, even though it is not. So this is a very good hybrid layer. Something that looks moist, but it is not. Why it is so strong? One of the reasons, and even though those are not my numbers, I know not only by reading articles, not by clinically using, is because I did literally in the lab. I did this testing with several friends that I made from Russia, from US, and all teachers we were in this lab, and we were able to conduct those experiments with several bonding agents, and PEEK is always the strongest one. And I've been using for several years already. The article says, and I could do that in the lab myself as well, to be sure. One of the things I like is it is not strong. This is important. It is not strong because of chlorhexidine. It is strong because there's a lot of filler. There's a lot of phosphate monomers in it. So it is very strong, but also has chlorhexidine. So when we're talking about denting, and this is not the case because I'm bonding in this particular case in enamel, when there's denting involved, chlorhexidine helps with longevity of that. It's not that it is stronger because of chlorhexidine, it's only that lasts longer because of that. Not this case. 2 weeks from now, we're gonna talk about that. It's a very important question, a very recurring question, that why on the cervical in class 5 tends to fail a little bit more. I remember a dentist from San Francisco, he asked me, explanation is gonna be in 2 weeks from now, okay? Guys, like curing, light curing, we're going to talk about light curing is not the last day, the day before that. So I think it is going to be 5 days, 5 Wednesdays from now, we're going to talk about light curing as well. So what I did, basically, I'm taking an impression of the model and I'm using a flowable composite to do what? The first palatal layer. And why a flowable? It's not weaker. It is not weaker. And definitely, and this is the first question. Hey, Rafael, using a flowable on palatal is not a weaker composite. It is not a weaker composite. It is not, because this one is high field. You should always look for a flowable that there's a lot of fillers. And that's the case of PermaFlow. And I highly recommend using that on your palatal layer because it is gonna be very thin, very homogeneous, and it sticks very well onto the tooth. There's no gaps, no bubbles, no nothing. So a flowable, but it must be a high field one. You apply there. After we did that, we're gonna light cure, obviously. And then I'm gonna start working on proximals. So it's a small bit on mesial, a small bit on distal as well, okay? After I did that, I'm gonna do exactly the same thing on the other central incisor. So palatal, like curing, proximals, and you can do both at the same time and cure them. Then I'm gonna do the mamelon. So this is a more opaque color, a denting opaque color. I'm creating new mamelons. And above everything, the enamel color. So this is the enamel color, a more translucent color, and I'm covering everything. It's very similar. If you guys were with me, the first Wednesday that we talked about that case, the layering is very similar, even simpler than that case I did on the first case discussion. One thing I want you guys to see, it is this here. This little porosity. It is very easy to see this porosity here because this is a macro photography. Clinically, sometimes it's a little hard. When we're gonna find out? When we're doing the finishing and when it is too late, because you know, all the little powders and everything gets stuck into there. Very important tip, always seal your composite. Makes it last longer, it is easier to polish, and the surface, it is sealed. And how do we seal that? There's a material called PermaSeal. It is not a bonding agent because it's 100% hydrophobic. It should be cured, but you're sealing your restoration. In case you didn't see, and that's what usually happens with those porosities, for sure you're gonna be sealing them, easier to polish afterwards, okay? So what I'm gonna do, quick finishing. I'm not doing the finishing and the polishing. Quick finishing only to get into the next pair of teeth, the lateral incisors. Same things, guys. So etching, washing, drying a lot, applying the bonding system, should look moist, applying the palatal, then the proximals, freehand. Proximals must be done freehand. There's no other way. This little pellet here is the enamel color that I'm gonna spread. So remember the first Wednesday that we talked about how important it is to do a true outlet and to control the thickness of that. And I use the wetting resin to do that. Seal again. This is very important. Then I'm gonna go for the canines. Canines again, guys, the same thing. Etching, washing, drying, bonding, and applying the only difference is that I applied the palatal. Palatal was very thick to give us the canine guidance, lateral guidance. It should be very thick. And this is a good thing about the canine because it supports, there's absolutely no problem. And I did in 2 steps. This is the only difference here. Curing each step of the way, doing the palatal, and then going for the buccal, all the same color scheme. And then we finished. It is time to go for the lowers. Okay, lowers, then, and it's a little bit different what I do. I prefer to do, you know, each tooth. So I do like this because it is easier to control the width. It is easier to control the contact points on the lowers because they are too narrow. And this is the thing, they're too narrow. And This is one of the challenges in this case, and that's what I want to share. You guys will see. So again, etching, drying, bonding, washing, drying, bonding, all of the things. This is one of the challenges. It is really tall. It is really 3 millimeters tall. It is a lot. It is definitely a lot. I need to be sure on 3 things here. I need to be sure that occlusion is not only good, it is perfect. And I know that because I know who did. I know that Marcelo took care of that. So there's no excuse. I cannot give the excuse of occlusion because it is balanced. I know that. Second thing I need to take into account, bonding. It must be the strongest one. And the last thing, light curing. We're going to talk about light curing. I don't remember. I think it's going to be 4 lectures. It's going to be in a month. We're going to talk about light curing. Don't miss this one. Light curing is fundamental. Occlusion, bonding, light curing. If I have those 3 little things, I can rest assured, I can be a more tranquil that this will be, it is strong stuff. Okay, it will be there. But again, it is really tall. Same thing. Lingual, in this case, palatal or lingual, proximals, dentin, enamel. Okay, so no big deal. Even simpler to do that. We need to rely on good composites. Composite that I used in this case, it is the Mosaic. Mosaic, I know it is available here in Europe. Pretty much most countries here in Europe. Depending on which country you are, Mosaic is not available. So it is available US and Europe, if I'm not wrong. Maybe some portions of Asia, I'm not sure about that. Okay. So now I'm gonna do the other teeth that I left behind. I already did some finishing on proximals, so our life, it is a little easier. It's important if you can do some markings. It helps you in knowing which teeth should be, because again, they're too narrow. And I did exactly, guys, the same thing. So I'm not gonna go the whole sequence. So lingual, proximals, dentin, enamel, polishing, sealing, and then we're gonna start doing the polishing. Talking about the polishing. How do I do polishing? I do all the steps on the same appointment. Okay, all the steps on the same appointment. So what we're seeing here is immediately after. 3 months later, I call the patient back. Why 3 months? It could be 2 weeks. You don't have to wait for 3 months. We waited for 3 months because that was time, if you notice, all from premolar back, all the posteriors, up and lower, they have the bisacral provisional. So that was time to change the provisionals from the posteriors into the definitive, so the ceramic solution. So now we have the definitive, we have the not the temporary, we have the ones that are stronger. So most of them are ceramics. We have I think there was only one provisional here, if I'm not wrong, but we already have the definitive solution on posterior. So that's, and took 3 months to do that. So that's why I recall the patient to redo the polishing. Usually, how much time would I wait? At least 2 weeks. Why is that important with composites? 2 weeks is the necessary time for composites to do what? Rehydrate. Easier to polish a hydrated composite. Another thing, composites, they keep on curing in the mouth in the dark. They keep on curing a little bit, 10, 15% more. It is easier to polish something that it is 10 to 15% more cured. It is easier to polish something that it is hydrated. Okay, so you should do all the steps in polishing immediately after you did, but know that after 2 weeks, it is easier and gets better. Okay, exactly what it is my protocol. On both days, immediately after and 2 weeks after, what it is my protocol. I start from the rougher to the softer. So it is 4 steps, 4 steps. First one, scalpel. So I use the scalpel as we use the Lecron on doing the wax up. So I use the scalpel. I love the 15 blade and the 12C blade. The 12C blade, I'm gonna work on proximals. The 15 blade, I'm gonna work also on proximals, but more incisal. 12C, more cervical. So what I'm gonna do with the scalpel, I'm gonna do the rough edges. I'm gonna start drawing where I want the lines, where I want the angles, where I want the flat areas. That's what I'm gonna do with the scalpel. Literally, I'm sculpting the composite as we do with wax. Okay, so I'm sculpting with the scalpels. 15, it can be 11 also. If you like the 11 blade, you can use the 11 blade. I prefer 15C and 12. The 15C is more, it's a smaller 15, it's more delicate. And 12C is one that cuts on both sides. Okay, it looks like a scissor and cuts on both sides. Very good to work. Drawing these kind of lines helps a lot, And what I do, scalpel is the first step. Second step, I'm gonna use the discs. 3M, Shofu, Ivoclar, they have very good discs. You should use the whole sequence of those discs. Discs, they're a little softer than the scalpel, but definitely rougher than the silicone points. Silicone points, that's what I use also a lot. So you're gonna use the sequence of discs, you're gonna use the sequence of the silicone points. Jiffy system from Ultradent, this sequence is a very Brazilian sequence because it's the Brazilian color, the Brazilian flag colors. Green, it's a little coarser, it is a little rougher. Medium is yellow. Then we have white, that it is fine, and we have blue, that it is diamond, so it's super fine. We have to use the whole sequence of that. And one important point, low speed burr on low speed. So we're not using the strongest, the faster speed. On the opposite, the faster that you can go with a low speed burr, it is 30,000 RPM. You never should use that. You never should go, you should be under 10,000. So it's 1/3 or less of the highest speed of the low speed contra-angle. Okay, 1/3 of this 30,000 RPM or less, okay, around 8,000, around 9,000 RPM. So it's kind of slow. You get better results. Took me a lot of time to understand that. Took me a lot of time to, that's something that I would love someone told me that before. So I could not emphasize this more than that. Another thing that you can use, and I highly recommend, if this is available in your country, please do use a spiral. Ultradent also in several places, they have this very good spirals called Jiffy Naturals. It's even simpler because it's only 2 steps. And the thing about spirals, you're gonna see here that I used on everybody the yellow. Then I use the white one only, you're gonna see on the right side of the screen, on the left side of the patient. And I use the white, 2 steps. And that's how much of a shine it gives us. And why is that? Because besides the speed, we're also talking about what? Pressure. So there's 2 things we need to take control when we're using silicone points. Speed, as I said, under 10,000 RPM, and pressure. Pressure, I cannot tell you guys how much. It is a light touch. With spirals, you can never put too much pressure because the spiral acts as a shock absorber. So we can see here the bristles absorbing the pressure I'm applying there. So this helps us in getting a faster luster, a faster finishing. Okay, so if you have available in your country, please do try, because you're gonna be amazed at how easy it is using the spirals as well. And this is what I'm saying about, you know, shock absorption. There's no way you can put too much pressure and generate too much heat there, okay? And remember, speed, 1/3 or less than those 30,000 RPM. The Jiffy composite polishing brushes, we can see in a very close image that those little guys here, those little gray spots, this is silicon carbide embedded into the nylon bristles. Those are the guys responsible. So again, we're going to use low speed intermittently. You're not putting pressure. It's the opposite of pressure, and it is not continuously. You're going to do something like this. Very slow, very light touch with this brush. Then the last one, so the last one again, scalpel is the first one. Then the whole sequence of discs. Then the whole sequence of silicone points. Then we're gonna go for the polishing pastes. I prefer using diamond-based polishing pastes. Why? You can also use aluminum oxide. Aluminum oxide is good, takes a little longer. Diamond paste, it is faster. This is the only difference. So it is really faster. The luster is not even shine anymore. This luster comes quicker when we do that. Ultradent has two sizes, 1 micron and 0.5 microns or 500 nanometers. So it is very small sized particles. There's two grids we can use. And this is what we see after I did the whole procedure, upper and also on the lower. And this is how I started. This is how it started. You know, when she came back after 3 months, that's the situation I had. When I did the finishing, this is the final situation of this case. So we can see there's a lot of shine there. This is the idea. Also here, the lower, I'm really happy about the lower because really, it is really tall. It is hard to see. This is one of the things that a good composite should do. It is to blend where it is tooth and where it is real enamel. And this is what I love about mosaic enamel colors and also dentin colors. It helps me when I do a good layering, a good overlaying actually, it helps a lot to blend, you know, so it is hard for us to see where it is who, so who's composite and who's tooth. Okay, so this is the shine that we can see in a closer shot, the lower one, and this is how much composite there it is. So this is, I'm only overlaying some pictures here, so to give an image of how much composite that it is there. So this was the challenge. I had very tall, but also very wide teeth. They were not good looking. At the end, I think we managed to have, in the constraints that we had, in this case, to have something that it is more natural in her mouth, taking into account that I have bone loss. Bone crest is definitely not where I want it to be, but it is more natural. It is more good looking, taking into account everything. So this, again, she's not 18 years anymore, and bone crest is not where we want it to be. But this is important about aesthetics, not about, you know, a perfect ideal of aesthetics. Is harmonization of that. It is bringing harmony into the smile. That's what the idea, and that's what I think we achieved. And also being 100% non-invasive on those 12 innocent anterior teeth. That's what Marcelo asked me to do in this case. And this is me and Marcelo in some airport. I don't remember which airport. And this is us. Tiago is this guy. He's an orthodontist, and he helped me taking pictures. And here's the patient after we finished. Okay, so again, my friends, I'm gonna bring back 2 weeks from now, I'm gonna bring back this topic about etching and bonding. And this is the image I want you guys to remember when we're back talking about that case. That case I'm gonna talk about 2 weeks from now, okay? And I'm gonna bring back a little bit tissue management and a new way to do the veneers. Not this one I did freehand. So this case here is a different technique. I'm going to talk about the U-veneer, and I want to bring back a little bit of the bonding as well on this case. Okay, there's some challenges. So remember this image. But next week, so this is the bonding again, sorry, I forgot those images. And I'm gonna talk about something that I haven't spoke about, PEEK. There's another thing about PEEK. I wanna talk about how useful it might be, how multi-purpose this material is. Next week, and this is one of my favorite cases ever. I'm being a very fortunate guy to have great patients. So all the cases I've showed, the case I showed today, the first one and the next one, this is an amazing case. I needed to change those restorations. And I want to talk about this case particularly about morphology. So we're going to talk about gingivectomy, and I use the laser and how incredible of a tool it is. But more than that, I want to talk about morphology, gingivally speaking, and also the tooth morphology, how it is more forgiving than we think. But again, how planning, it is everything. Okay, so this is going to be the case for next week. It's a great case. I hope you guys enjoyed today's case. Definitely, I loved doing today's case. And next week case, it is a kind of an older one. It's probably 4 to 5 years already. And it's a big, it is a nice challenge, not difficult when you plan ahead. That's what I want to talk about. So my friends, again, this one was a little longer, I know that. So it took me like 5 minutes more, 6 minutes more than usually we do. I hope that we can meet again next Wednesday. My friends, as usual, if there's any questions, if there's any ideas, any cases you want to share for future discussions, feel free. You guys have my email, my Instagram account as well, or my Facebook if you wish. And it will be great to have you guys once again next Wednesday, same time, same everything. It's gonna be our 4th of 8, I guess, right, that we have planned. So don't miss. Next one is gonna be awesome. In 2 weeks, it's gonna be even better. So, oh, there's one thing as well. Last week, so it's gonna be like a month from now or something like this. My idea, it is to talk with you guys about, questions, and it's gonna be a Q&A, questions and answers. So feel free, as we did with bleaching, feel free to send your questions to me or to Dornwell or my email, doing a direct message on Instagram. So this is gonna be a month from now. But that's the idea, so we can talk about questions and answers. If there's any questions about the cases, about dentistry in general, about philosophy, about anything. So the last day, it's gonna be a little bit more participative. Alicia from Dornwell, she wrote something. I have absolutely no idea what it is. Probably is calling you guys, it's 20% something. So probably, I hope it is a discount. Sounds like a discount. Katarina, super thank you. Obrigado. And you know your stuff, Katarina, because obrigada is definitely how women should say, with an A at the end. I'm a man, so I say obrigado with an O at the end. So congratulations on your Portuguese. Not everybody knows that. Very, very nice. Alicia, thank you so much. Barbara, thank you again for being here. It is always, always an honor. And guys, you guys are awesome. So thank you for being here and for giving me the opportunity to interact with you guys. Hopefully you liked today's case. For sure you're gonna, if you like today's case, wait until you see next week. It is awesome. It is a beautiful case, and it is a different approach. I'm going to talk a little bit about laser and how it is easy to work with that, the advantages and everything. Irina, thank you so much as well. Obrigada, exactly that. And Kasia, Katarina from Dornwell as well. Perfect. My friends, I know it's a little late in Poland. So in Poland, it's probably already 20 minutes to 9. Hope you guys had a great day. Hope you have a great day tomorrow as well. Take a good rest. See you guys next Wednesday. Thank you so much. You guys are awesome. Bye-bye.